Hello, welcome to another tonalist landscape oil painting demonstration. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I'm bringing you today is a study after John Francis Murphy. It's called Stormy, A Stormy Day. The original is at the Brooklyn Museum there in the United States, and don't know much about it. I do know that the reference image for this is a little bit small. Mine's painted a little brighter than the reference, and that's okay. It's all to the good because I believe it probably would have been fresher and brighter back in the day. In a little while here, I'm going to read a bit about John Francis Murphy from the History of American Tonalism book, which is an amazing book if you like this sort of painting. I highly recommend you just go to Amazon and buy yourself a copy. You won't regret it. It's an amazing book. Yeah, and I've been recommending this book for, the whole 6, 7 years now we've had the channel. Anyway, let's talk about what I'm doing here. I'm working on some hardboard, and I'm doing my underpainting with black. And the reason I'm doing my underpainting with black is because I have every intention at this juncture of the painting process of finishing the painting later in the day. So I went in the morning and did my underpainting slash drawing, and I think it's very as you can see, I went in fairly light, and now I'm kind of bearing down, and that can be a bit of a time saver. That way I don't have to do another dark layer later. A lot of times though, I'll do a burnt umber if I think maybe I just have time to get the drawing slash underpainting done one day, and then I'll come back and do the color another day. This I painted yesterday, so I basically staked out the time, and I was thinking, I've had this in my little to paint folder for a while, and it was its time yesterday. Yes, indeed. This is one of my favorite John Francis Murphy's. Oh, I should point out the hardboard is primed with 2 coats of transparent gesso. So it looks like it's just plain hardboard, but it's actually all primed. And you must prime your boards. You really can't just go painting on raw boards, because over time the paint and the oil will just get absorbed into the board. Your painting will gradually just disappear, and maybe some people paint just to paint, but a lot of us we're attracted to oil paint and oil paintings because we know they survive, they last. So good best practice there is to have a gesso intermediary. Anyway, getting it back into the black, I knew I was going to be just doing the painting that afternoon, so black was fine. You say, well, what's the problem? So what's the problem if you want to wait? The problem is that the black is such a slow drying pigment that I would almost have to wait almost a couple weeks in my experience. What I've had happen is I've gone in with the color, and actually the oil from the medium with the black layer would often delaminate because it wasn't actually dry. Here it doesn't matter because it's wet. And that delamination, when that happened to me, it happened to me a couple times. It wasn't what I wanted to happen, I'll tell you that. So, but I do enjoy doing my underpaintings with black. Like I say, it can be a real time saver since I know my darkest aspects of the painting are going to be black. In this case, definitely, there's a lot of strong contrast. There are times, like some of the Ines studies I've done recently, where the black is, maybe I'll mix a little black into a burnt umber, and that'll be my darkest tone. One thing I'm not into too much is the chromatic blacks. I did paint that way. Even in the early days of this channel, you can see I'm painting that way. But it's not as convincing a result for tonalism. They wouldn't have had chromatic black. Chromatic black is usually like phthalo meets quinacridone red kind of thing. So it's very dark, and Capac is black, but it has a lot more color in it than just plain old black. The black in this case was lamp black. I don't really. I've had people tell me that there are certain differences between lamp black and ivory black. I'll be honest with you, I haven't really noticed any differences. One seems to act quite like the other. To me, they're interchangeable. I'd both what I'd call them is just a carbon black. You know, why do they call it ivory black? Do you know? Well, it's because they used to burn ivory to make it. It's burnt ivory. It's burnt bones, is what it is. Yeah. And it's a beautiful permanent color. It actually has a bit of a bluish cast to it, a coolness to it. Um, and you know, it's just the thing for pulling this off. So this is what I've painted this before. I might even take a minute this afternoon and revisit my previous interpretation of it. I'm looking at a version of his, and it looks a bit darker than mine, as I may have mentioned earlier, but that's okay. That's okay. I'd rather, these days I'm tending to err on the side of a little brighter across the boards. It's just going to make the paintings more saleable, for one. For two, they stand up better to lighting conditions that aren't, you know, optimal. And you know, so many factors go into that, like how's the image being projected to me from my reference monitor at work, which is different from my home monitor that I'm looking at right now, etc., so on and so forth. Now, something very interesting, in 1 minute I'm going to get into this book, so stay tuned for that. But something very interesting about what Murphy would do sometimes is, like, you can't tell quite often where the trees start or stop, or where the clouds start or stop. They kind of will merge in, and that was fun. And I don't know, like, if that dark bit of the tree, you know, there was no definite edge between that and the darkest cloud in that area. So that was definitely cool and fun. And the sky was cool and fun to paint. And before we get into the nest, I might just point out, like, if you're thinking of taking a crack at master studies, I got a couple tips for you. One, do your best to be, you know, somewhat faithful, but do so in a way that's just moving through things, moving along. Don't get hung up on being an exact copyist. That's just going, first of all, it's going to make the whole experience quite a bit less fun. It's going to get real tedious. And that stiffening up, especially say you're trying to do something like a Murphy. Murphy is so expressive and loose with his brushwork that attempting to do an extra tight copy of a very loose painting, it's just a recipe for disaster. So it's quite a few, like, M. Francisisms that have worked their way into this painting. But I do think it's a pretty good study after his work, and I certainly enjoyed doing it. And I hope you're enjoying watching it get done. So I'm on page I'm going to go to 217. And I always, when I read the Murphy section, I always read the beginning. So I'm just jumping somewhat in the middle because we don't have time to read the whole chapter. It's a pretty good Actually, it's one of the few places you can really learn much about Murphy. So get the book. David A. Cleveland's an amazing writer, and I will be trumpeting the awesomeness of this book until the day I die. Yeah. Page 217, towards the end of the page. By the early years of the new century, Murphy found himself at the epicenter of the tonalist movement. After the death of the founding generation of Innes, Wyatt, Martin, and Whistler, Murphy was certainly the most successful of living practitioners, with the possible exception of Albert Pinkham Ryder, Dwight Tryon, Henry Ward Ranger, and Charles Harold Davis, all of whom garnered high prices at auction and commanded legions of eager collectors. Tonalism had become the mood of the age. After the influx of Impressionism in the early 1890s, tonalism dominated the market by 1900, thoroughly permeating the consciousness of painters, dealers, and patrons alike. See, David writes really lovely. Even the word tone found its way into common parlance, as it does to this day. Murphy, in a letter to his wife in September 1900, describes the scenery in terms of tone. The country is beginning to look fine, quite yellowish in tone. In another letter of 1902, Murphy notes the important role of the gilded frame in the overall tonal feel of a painting. I put it in my frame and it comes out fine. It is one of the best ones I have done. The frame helps so much in giving it tone. And in 1912, admiring one of his own early paintings. Oh, there's some beautiful work in this book. Murphy writes, I wish I had it. You would like it. It's such a fine old tone. A writer, R.G. McIntyre, in an article in the Miscellany in the spring of 1912, described Murphy's work in terms that formed the keystone of his late reputation: simplicity, economy, brevity, suggestiveness, and charm. His canvases are never crowded, and there is a total absence of laborious detail, as there is of broad splotches of paint. His forms are suggested, our imagination being called upon to draw them out. This painting is very indicative of that. By the way, this painting was done in 1887. It is an 18 by 25, so not a huge painting. 1824, there you go. 1825 would be golden mean, and this fit right into the golden mean very nicely. His work, too, is truly American in character. There is no reminiscence of the art of other countries or other ages. It is purely personal and interpreted with all the freshness and wholesome vitality characteristic of the American life today. And if I suggested we are sometimes reminded of Corot as simply the result of a temperamental accident, of an almost similar attitude towards the wondrous beauties of nature. Tonalism had become a distinctly national style, and how far it has fallen. But it has worked its way in the subconscious, especially not, I mean, I get international viewers, but the reason I started this channel back in, don't quote me, I want to say 2015. Well, actually, there's videos on it from 2014, but started in 2015 is and decided I was getting into recording my painting process. Had developed a ton of videos, you know, and thinking, wow, these are valuable, you know. Maybe I'll start a site where I'll charge people to come have a look at them, you know. But after a while, that just seemed like way too much work, and you'd have to market it and all that. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to use my videos to promote tonalism, because I think tonalism is awesome, and I think more people should know about it. So that's been one of the foundations and bases of my channel. The whole time. You know, every now and again I do paintings that aren't tonal, and I will continue to do that. But it's like my first and favorite love, and I'll always be doing tonalist work. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on here. You know, how exciting is it to see these emerald greens up against the reds and oranges and the dark bluish grays and yellows in the sky. It's a very exciting palette, and you know, I'm gonna have this painting for sale in the shop there. I'm gonna put it up there. It's gonna have a fair price on it, and it's beautiful. So hopefully someone will buy it. I guess the other thing I wanted to say about this painting is that last time I did it, I was working on a textured board, which gives you a lot of like advantages for doing something like a Murphy study, because you could just drag your brush and get all this implied texture and stuff. Not just implied, I mean you actually are utilizing the textured board. But here I created the textured feeling through the application of varied brush strokes. So and that's a different approach. One thing I'll do is use a little smaller brush than I might otherwise, and it gives you a really nice feeling. I just love working on the smooth boards. I still enjoy texture too, but I have a whole different way of working on texture. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end. If you like this painting, go buy it. It'll be for sale. If you like this channel, leave me a like, share the video, and please leave me a comment. It really makes my day when I get some comments. Just makes me feel like I'm not talking to myself here. Also, you can join the members area. This video is in the members area, about 3.5 hours long, the live one, but you're there with me in the trenches. We're working together, and a lot of people keep those on in the background as they're doing their own paintings and things, because I'll drop some knowledge on you here and there as I'm working. It won't always be non-stop, but because let's face it, I'm turning on the camera and I'm working, you know. Anyway, thanks for joining me today, and until I come back with another video for edification and enjoyment, do me a favor, do me a solid, take good care of yourself, your family, all your loved ones. Stay out of trouble, and God bless you and your family.